In Spanish colonial time in Puerto Rico, education was reserved exclusively for white males from wealthy families. Public schooling did not exist. Segregation and racism were legal, and more than 80% of Puerto Rico's population was illiterate. Women and people of color were not allowed to study. However, this system was challenged in Puerto Rico. Many of the island's prominent historical figures, such as Roman Baldoridi de Castro, Alejandro Tapia Rivera, and José Julián Acosta, they were taught by two educators whom Puerto Rico remembers with deep respect and affection, because we all owe our education style to them. The teachers of the Cordero Molina family. Celestina Cordero Molina, born on April 6, 1787, a black woman born into a free black family, and Rafael Cordero Molina, who born in San Juan, Puerto Rico on October 24, 1790. Their father, Lucas Cordero, worked in the tobacco fields, and their mother, Rita Molina, was a housewife. They lived in this context. Celestina Cordero Molina was a pioneer of public education in Puerto Rico. When she founded Puerto Rico's first school for girls in 1820, an institution that was profoundly innovative for its time, her school stood out for its inclusivity, as it educated white and black girls and young women, both free and enslaved, something unprecedented in 19th century colonial society, making her school the first public all-inclusive school in the United States. At times, Celestina also admitted boys, although the education of male students was primarily handled by her brother, Rafael Cordero Molina. The deliberate decision to educate all women without distinction of origin or social condition turned her initiative into a truly revolutionary act, challenging the gender and class norms imposed by the Spanish colonial regime and setting a fundamental precedent in the history of women's education and social justice in Puerto Rico. In fact, it was the only school of its time to promote this level of social inclusion, as other educational institutions for girls admitted only white students from wealthy families, which shows that education was a deeply rooted commitment within the Cordero family. Due to the prevailing social discrimination of the time, when Rafael Cordero was a child, he was unable to attend a formal school, so he educated himself independently. He learned to read, write, and do arithmetic through borrowed books, constant observation, and strict personal discipline, while working as a bookbinder and tobacco worker to help support his family. This was the reason he opened his first school with his sister in 1810, to challenge the government system that controlled who was allowed to receive an education. He provided free instruction in reading, writing, arithmetic, catechism, and moral values to white, black, and mixed heritage children, so they could develop a sense of identity and critical thinking, openly challenging the social and class segregation that prevailed in colonial society. Rafael Cordero was deeply Catholic and attended Mass daily before dawn. He always wore a distinctive blue suit and a black hat, and lived with extreme humility. He died on July 5, 1868, in San Juan at the age of 77. His funeral was attended by more than 2,000 people. He is buried at the Santa Maria Magdalena de Paz's cemetery in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico. His funeral was a collective expression of the respect, gratitude, and love that the people felt. For someone who had shown that education is the most powerful tool against ignorance, racism, and inequality, Rafael and his sister Celestina Cordero Molina profoundly changed the course of Puerto Rico, because they redefined who had the right to knowledge in a society marked by social exclusion, poverty, and racism. By opening their homes as free schools for children of all races and social classes, they challenged the established social order and offered poor and black people the possibility of social mobility through education. In doing so, they broke the social and legal norms of the 19th century and created one of the first spaces of racial and social integration on the island, demonstrating that education could and should be a universal right at a time when speaking about such ideas was dangerous. The impact of their work went far beyond basic literacy. Through their teaching, they shaped students who later became intellectual leaders with strong critical thinking skills. Rafael Cordero personally educated political and cultural figures who were fundamental to Puerto Rico's development. These men played central roles in movements such as the abolition of slavery, Puerto Rican autonomism, the defense of human civil liberties, and the development of Puerto Rican critical thought. Without the education they received in childhood under the guidance of the Cordero teachers, much of the reformist leadership that drove social and political change in the 19th century would not have been possible. The work of the Cordero family laid the moral and practical foundations for what would later become Puerto Rico's public education system. Although their school was not a government institution, their model of free, inclusive education and community-based established the principle that education should serve the common good of all people, rather than the interests of an elite. Over time, this idea became a central value of Puerto Rican society and was assumed by the state as a public responsibility. In summary, Rafael Cordero Molina and his sister Celestina Cordero Molina did not merely educate individuals. They transformed the social and intellectual structure of Puerto Rico. Their work helped reduce illiteracy in Puerto Rico, promoted racial integration. The Puerto Rico Teachers Association annually awards the National Medal Rafael Cordero to outstanding educators. Rafael Cordero was declared venerable by Pope Francis in 2013 for his heroic virtues, becoming a model of selflessness and piety. The famous painter Francisco Aller gave permanence to Rafael Cordero image and work in La Escuela del Maestro Rafael Cordero, painting. The anthology Celestina Cordero Molina, Siempre Viva, was edited by Rosario Mendez Penedez and featuring works by over 30 artists, poets, and writers, was published to celebrate the life and revive the legacy through poems, illustrations, and stories. On January 9, 2023, the Senate of Puerto Rico designate the Department of Education headquarters as Edificio Celestina, Gregoria and Rafael Cordero Molina in honor to the Cordero Molina family's legacy in advancing public education in Puerto Rico. The Cordero family dedicated their lives to educate people and train leaders who would go on to drive historic political reforms in favor of human rights and established education as a fundamental pillar of the country's development. For these reasons, their influence does not belong only to the past, but continues to live on in the history and values of Puerto Rico. If you made it this far, follow us to learn more about Puerto Rican culture and support this content by liking the page.